Honestly, the way Gukesh just dismantles his Super GM opponent, Jorden van Foreest, in this game is just insane. It's ridiculous. He's just 16 years old. Now, he is 17 this month, by the way. There's a few people said, I swear he's been 16 forever. Well, 29th of May, he finally turned 17. Even though he's got a beard that makes him look like 27, right? He's doing pretty well. Anyway, this is the TePe Sigeman and Co chess tournament. Many household names playing, as you can see. It's being played in Malmo, Sweden, and this is the round one game, Gukesh with black. So d4 on the board from Jorden. Now we see d5, c4, and c6 is the Slav defense to the queen's gambit. We see both knights developing, and now pawn e3, white happy to play with this pawn inside the pawn chain, develop it later in the game. We see bishop f5, knight c3, and now e6 voluntarily allows white to pick up this bishop pair. Now black always flicks in this bishop e4 move. You don't want to actually capture that one, or after pawn recaptures, there's a threat to go g5, trap your knight, and so you'd have to go g3, and it's just quite an ugly pawn structure and remaneuver. It's better for black. So what we always see is pawn f3, it kicks back this bishop, and now we see queen b3. So no rush as of yet to capture that bishop, but eventually the knight will do it. Now this pawn's attacked on b7, so Gukesh covers. Now we see bishop d2, and now takes on c4, activates this bishop, but a6 prepares to pick up a tempo on that bishop. Now b5 is one option, sometimes you even see c5 on the board, but bishop e2 comes anyway, anticipating b5. Gukesh starts with bishop e7, and now aggressive stuff from Jorden, castles queenside, we're in for a treat of a game, right? So b5 comes on the board, classic idea to pawn storm that king. And now the knight takes on g6. Why did white time it at this moment? Well, they want to go king b1, tuck the king away, and obviously by eliminating the bishop, you've allowed that to happen. c5 now from Gukesh, and we see captures of this pawn. You didn't have to do that. One of the other moves that the computer suggests is knight e4, and then c4, very different game. Those pawns are coming at you. But we see takes on c5, and now knight b to d7 is the best move because you prepare to recapture that one with the knight. h4 now from Jorden, so he's going for counterplay. By the way, the computer didn't love that move. It preferred queen c2 or g4, and so already from this moment it gives black now a small advantage. So the knight takes on c5, the queen drops back, and rook c8 played. Classic idea coming to the file, and there's all sorts of ideas in the air now of pawn b4, knight a4 stuff. g4 comes from Jorden now, carrying on with his plan, and you don't want to go b4 just yet, because now if knight a4, well, this isn't actually so much. The best way is to block the check like this, and the pieces are coming off, and actually white's doing quite well here. So coming back to the game, instead we see queen b8 from Gukesh. Awesome move because it threatens b4, opens up the line of this rook on the queen. And so that's why we now see rook c1. This time if you go b4, no good, because you're losing this piece here with check. That's just horrendous, really good for white. And so that's why Gukesh starts with castles, connects the rooks, and so now b4 is a threat. But what does Jorden do, as all the top players so often do? He counterattacks. Every tempo is crucial when you're castled on opposite sides. So he pushes on with this pawn, and there's a really interesting line. If b4 had happened, well then you can take here, sack a piece, but you get this huge initiative once the bishop hits this diagonal. And the problem is, say you drop the knight back, this is the computer's favourite move, a defensive manoeuvre, also opening the rook, pinning the bishop. Well then there's some really nice ideas like rook h3, doubling the rooks, forcing black to capture, then invading with the queen. Very dangerous attack, and the computer gives it roughly level, but it's much harder for black to play. So what do we see instead? Well, g5 from Gukesh. He looks to keep the position closed. And I'll briefly pause here actually, because talking of the opposite side castling, every tempo being key. Well, this is something I've been recently looking at on AIMCHESS, and I'd strongly encourage you to do so too. So it's the #1 place that I learn chess right now. And what's so good is they bring in your game data from Chess, chess.com, and therefore tailor the lessons to your needs based on your real positions. Now, it's completely free to sign up, as so often with these things. So you can try it out. You actually get a lot of free content just from the free sign up. And if you do like it, you can use the code EPIC at checkout to get all the bells and whistles with a discount. So click the link below, just check it out if nothing else. Strongly encourage you. Anyway, back to this one here. So G5 from Gukesh, keeping lines closed, and now H6 from Jorden. You know, he carries on the plan. Interestingly, now with B4, the piece sap gets a bit murkier. But okay, Gukesh goes G6, wants to keep lines closed. We see H7 check. The king now sidesteps. By the way, you don't really want to take with the knight because you activate the rook a bit earlier basically, plus you sidetrack the knight. This is the better way to do it. Just take that at a later moment, use the white pawn as a shield for the attack. And now A3 finally comes, responding to Gukesh's threat of pawn B4. But rook FD8 introduces a new threat now. So what's the threat? Well, just to show you, say you go rook H2, no, sorry, that's a terrible showing move because now the queen can capture. Say you go rook h3, sorry. Now you can take this bishop. This is the problem. You sidetrack the queen and then you come in here. Now you're only picking up the exchange back, but then the other key thing is that you hop the knight to d5, and because of the pin, you're actually now going to ruin the pawn structure. You know, this is a sample line. So it's much better for black. So you have to respond to this threat of taking the bishop. Best was bishop e1, but then there's knight a4, and again it's quite uncomfortable, you know, advantage to black, but that was the best way to go. But what we see from Jorden is b4. He lashes out. However, now Gukesh can land this knight b3 shot. Really good move. Excuse me. So now, after the queen captures, you know, that's forced. It was forking two pieces. Well, the rook can take this one here, and after this one challenges the file, well, we see some pieces liquidated, but Gukesh in the driving seat. Just to show you one line, by the way, if you take this knight to then eliminate the defender of the bishop, it looks like it might be good for black, because here you've picked up 2 minors for the rook. But actually, this rook invades using the fact that this knight is pinned. Queen f8 is best, and then you can just slowly build the pressure, because even if black takes this pawn to break the pin, after check, king g7, it's just really hard to actually break this pin on the knight, and so it's technically a bit better for white. Not loads in it though. But okay, the rook didn't eliminate the knight. Instead, we see captures on d1. The knight recaptures. This one dropped off with check. King takes. Now the pawn is mopped up. And we see king d2 tucking away, maybe looking to run behind that pawn wall. And now queen a7 from Gukesh just starts to probe at that pawn. And it's this part of the game that I love the absolute most. It's just mastery from a 16-year-old. So queen d3 played. And now here, how many of us would go knight d5? You centralize, you know, you kind of pressure here, but after knight c3, well, you're in danger of kind of liquidating pieces. If you take, there's not much for black. If you drop back, well, you're blocking your queen. If you come back to f6, well, you're back to where you came from. So what does Gukesh do? Well, knight d7, and it just keeps tension. Now knight c3, now queen c7 played, you know, looking down in this direction, possibly, if the knight ever moved and was saved. And now knight e4, wonderful centralizing move, but f5 played. Brilliant stuff. This bishop does such a good job of controlling the knight, and we're going to see that theme later on. When you've got a bishop 2 squares away from a knight like this, it's always going to dominate. So queen c3 now played, the knight not actually moved, and again you just don't want to take, because now the knight drops back. It's on a much better circuit. The danger's gone for white, really. So we see queen b7 forces the knight to retreat, and now look at this knight. In the space of a few moves, we now get bishop f6, queen b3, queen c6 covering the pawn, and after queen c2, queen d6 check, we can just see black starting to edge over the position. This knight is worse than this one. So queen d3 played, offers a trade. Again it's declined with queen e7, king e1, king g7, queen b3, perhaps clearing this square to maneuver a piece into, one of the white minor pieces. But after Gukesh now goes knight to b6, well, this is where his timing is just impeccable. So because that one's coming in with effect, e4 now comes from Jorden to cover that square, but now bishop d4 using the weakened dark squares. Queen d3 back, and queen f6 covers the bishop that was attacked, and it's just tough now for Jorden to find moves. He's so under pressure. So he tries this knight h3 idea, and it's a tactical little shot. So the idea he's got, let me make a random move, I don't know, king here. Well, then he wants to take with check. Now when the queen recaptures, it's overloaded and you drop your bishop. So this is the threat in the air. Now the best way to respond to this was actually taking on e4. And after the pawn recaptures, then you hop with knight c4. And look at all those domination all over the dark squares. Now if you actually hop like this, well, queen f2 check comes. This is really good for black because you opened the f-file when you played that capture on e4. But what we see in the game is knight a4. Now it still plays against this move because if you capture, well, now the bishop can check first, supported by the knight, which hopped to a4. Then the king goes and you pick up here. So this was Gukesh's idea of knight a4, but a question mark because not the most precise move. So now Jorden, he takes on f5, good move, the pawn recaptures, and he goes king f1. Really tricky defense, because it looks like you're just walking into a pin. That one can't recapture. But again, this was his idea. Now the knight g5 stuff does work, because the king's cleared the dark square, you can't throw in the check, intermezzo, and so okay, you have to capture, you get something like this, takes with check, it should all now be level. So what does Gukesh do? Well, not takes here, e5, just another star move from this young man, supporting this bishop, freeing up the queen for action as we'll see, and after pawn takes, it slides over. Now if the queen takes, this was playable, but again the endgames are good for black. The problem is these pawns. So you can have a line like this, you defend the pawn, the bishop comes here, the knight can come back, preparing a check, but in these kind of positions, well, okay, those pawns on the queen side drop, and you've got an extra pawn, plus these are doubled, still really hard for white to play. But the pawn took, the queen slid over, sorry, phone pinging off, let me put that one on silent. The queen slid over, so it hits this knight, which is on h3, and now Jorden just finally goes wrong and cracks under pressure. Now king g2 looks so normal, but then there's this amazing knight maneuver coming into here and into e3 with check, and basically it's just so hard to defend against without clicking down all the lines. There's a real dark square domination here. So instead of king g2, we now see this pawn push on to defend the knight laterally with the queen, but it's a mistake because pawn captures was played, and yes, queen f3 comes trying to blockade on the light squares, but this will be the move that Jorden overlooked. What a fantastic move to keep advantage. Do of course pause if you want to look for the best move, the only move. So e4 on the board. Again, the queen can't take, or you drop this with check. So what do we see? Well, pawn f6 check flicked in. Nice idea, because after the king takes here, then the pawn drops with check, the queens come off, and okay, there's a slim, bit of hope. But once again, the problem is those pawns on dark squares, big targets. So we see bishop d1 swinging around, trying to attack this pawn. Now bishop b2, we see the bishop come on the pawn. Now the king covers, and knight g6 check. So Jorden's now got this idea of spinning the knight round to the queen side to pick these ones up, but we're going to see the problem. So these pawns, they drop off the board, but now once again we get the bishop domination that I mentioned earlier, and the huge problem here, if I play a couple more moves through, is that that knight is completely dominated, cut out of the game, and so it's basically an endgame where you've got 2 pawns and a knight against the bishop. So we saw resignation here. Now, just to show you a sample line to finish, this is the computer's top move. Well, then you can move the king back, preparing to march the pawn. The bishop just has to wait, and then once you get somewhere like here, well, you can even start marching the b pawn. Again, it's just going to be going through. You have to do something like this, and this is just dead lost. Even if the bishop exchanges for the pawn, this is still enough to make the white king. Just phenomenal from this young man. If you want to see another exceptional game by him, then check out the video on screen. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.